Hey y'all, this is Mr. Alexander, and today I want to show you some calculator strategies that will help you with the one sample t-test. Now this video is designed to follow my other video where I'm doing all the one sample t-test notes by hand. So if you haven't watched that video and you're trying to figure out where this data comes from, just go back and watch that one. It's about 14 minutes long. This one will be much quicker. So we got the same thing here. I've still got some data. I asked my students how far away they live from campus, and I typed this data into stat edit. It's already in there. And what I'm trying to do is test the hypothesis that the true average distance from campus is about 10 miles. And when I looked at the data, I kind of decided that that wasn't reasonable, so I made my alternative hypothesis less than 10. You can do everything, all these calculations by hand you can do in the calculator. If you head on over to the stat, hit stat, go over to tests, and it's just number 2, the t-test. You want to select data, and this is the null hypothesis mean. So the mean of the null hypothesis was 10, so I'm going to change that from a 0 to a 10. And we want to state our alternative hypothesis as well. And we said that that mu is less than 10, so I'm going to change it to less than. You don't need to do anything else. As long as it says L1, it's going to do all the calculations for you. So when I calculate here, what I get is a t-value of negative 3.794673.292. When I did it by hand, it was negative 3.80. So this is part of the reason I don't want the calculator to be your primary method of doing these calculations, because if you're doing like homework or a problem set or something, and you just type in this answer, it's going to be wrong because of rounding that takes place in between. So use this calculator to double check your work. And if I was double checking my t-statistic, I'm going to feel pretty good about that because that's what the calculator got as well. In my conclusion, I said, okay, we're in the critical region, so my p-value must be less than 0.05, but I wasn't able to specify what that p-value was. The calculator can do that for me. It's really small. It's 0.001485, which is definitely less than 0.05. So if you're getting to the end, you're getting to the conclusion, and you're like, is it greater than 0.05 or is it less than 0.05? This method will help you feel better about your answers. That is definitely less than 0.05. And of course, everything I did with stat edit, stat calc 1, I got here as well. The mean, the sample standard deviation, and the sample size. The one thing the calculator will not do for you is calculate the critical region unless you do something really fancy. But doing this method won't get you the t-critical. You're still going to have to use the table to get that t-critical. Degrees of freedom as well, but that's easy to calculate, right? It's just n minus 1, sample size minus 1. So you're going to have to be comfortable with getting the t-critical from the table. The other thing I wanted to show you is on the back of these notes, I asked my students another question. I asked them if they could go anywhere at this moment, where would they go, how far away is it? And I got some data for that. So I'm just going to type in that data real quick here. It's the same data from my last video. And you may have noticed in my last video that I typed one of these numbers wrong. And I will tell you which number I typed wrong as soon as I get there. In my last video, I typed in 213 instead of 2,133. So I'm just going to use that 213 again to just be consistent to make sure we get the same results. Alright, so I've got the data in there. And now I want to make a confidence interval. And what we did before is we did stat edit, stat calc 1 to get all this stuff, and then we did some fancy calculations, and we ended up with a confidence interval. Well, I can skip a lot of those steps if I go to stat, tests, and number 7 is the z-interval. We want the t-interval. It's number 8. This t-interval, all we have to do is specify if it's data or stats. In this case it's data. I put it in the list 1. And the confidence level. You'll see that it's a 90% confidence interval, so I'm going to change it from the default of 0.95 to 0.90, or just 0.9, same thing. And I'm going to calculate it. And hopefully what you see is that my lower bound, 728.62, is really close to the lower bound here of 728.57, and then 2569.38 is basically the same as 2569.4. So again, they're not exactly the same, so don't use this as your primary method of getting your answers. Use it as a double check to make sure you've got it correct. But in this case, it's very close, isn't it? And then all the stuff I got from stat edit stat calc 1, that information is on here as well. The only thing it will not do, again, is calculate the t-critical for you. So you're going to have to be comfortable with getting the t-critical from the table. But if you're comfortable with doing that stuff and you're like, I just need to double check my work, this is a great way to double check your work. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time for the 2 sample dependent and independent t-tests.